But actually, this is also thanks to me being a reborn person. As soon as the words were spoken, Adolf eagerly asked me to take action immediately. At that moment, the soldier behind once again advised, "With our current troop strength, entering the restricted area is simply a suicide mission." Before he could finish his sentence, he was stopped by Adolf, who then scolded, "Damn it, she is my most beloved niece. If anyone does not wish to go, please feel free. Whether it succeeds or not, I will not blame anyone. I have no other choice now. My only option is to place my last hope on Camus's fiancé." The scene changes. We arrived at the forbidden boundary of the red-black land. Although this area is also part of the Baskerville territory, as soon as night falls, suddenly, a large number of bloodthirsty monsters appear. At this moment, Adolf has been shocked for 2.5 years. He finally realized the gap between his family and the Baskervilles. Just in terms of courage alone, he had already lost thoroughly, because everyone who accompanied him was from the Baskervilles. As for me, I took on the role of vanguard for the entire team. When monsters blocked our path forward, I would draw my sword and quickly annihilate them. Quickly, 2.5 hours passed. We finally caught up with the barbarian tribe and pinpointed the temporary camp they had set up for a rest along the way. And I, relying on the experience from my past life, reminded everyone, if the barbarian tribe rests, they will spread dry leaves 8 meters outside the camp to prevent enemy sneak attacks. So next we must, but I haven't finished speaking yet. Adolf casts a spell towards my lower limbs. Although it is just a low-level spell for him, it's perfectly suited for use here, effectively eliminating noise while walking, and indicating that he will take care of what follows. I do not need to intervene in this matter. Meanwhile, in the camp ahead, Camus was loudly cursing the barbarians, reminding them not to let him break free. Otherwise, he would definitely burn down the entire barbarian tribe. However, no matter how much he shouted, the guards paid him no heed. The reason is simple. Not everyone can understand human speech like Aye. Seeing his threats were futile, Camus also fell into a state of dejection. Now she can only pray that her uncle would come to rescue her. Suddenly, the brute Alan who had captured him earlier appeared from the side. He started to size up Camus's body from top to bottom, preparing to use him as a breeding tool for the future. Even knowing that Camus's genes are very strong, seeing this, Camus directly scolded him not to harbor any ideas about him. However, Alan also could not understand what he was saying. The only thing certain was that his gaze was defiant. Then Alan directly grabbed Camus' cheek, took out a bow and arrow, ready to brand the future slave with the punishment for rebellion. Just at that moment, Aye walked over and scolded, "Get away from his slave!" Alan was very unhappy about the things naturally obtained being taken away. "Although Aye, you are my commander, it is clear that this Moor girl was captured by my own hands," Alan said. Aye then immediately questioned, "What do you mean you captured her? Can you recognize your own strength? Without my MZ needle, without me holding back that sword-wielding boy, do you really think you could escape easily?" But Alan still insists on not giving up the slave about to be in his grasp. So Aye no longer wastes words with her. His fists begin to emit a blue flame. "If you don't acknowledge what I say, then let us have a duel. Whoever wins will take the slave." Under such overwhelming force, Alan was instantly scared into a cold sweat, hastily waving his hands to explain that he shouldn't have talked back. He no longer wanted the slave, letting his commander deal with it as they pleased. It seemed that Aye had won this confrontation. Just as Camus was about to say something, he was kicked in the chest by Aye. "Damn it! I was captured and made a slave by your Morgue family. If not for a little kindness received amidst faint luck, I simply cannot escape the fate of becoming a slave. But you will not have the luck of ownership. I will tame you personally, making foot-licking one of your daily tasks." Just at that moment, a violent explosion suddenly occurred behind Aye. By the time he reacted, his subordinates were already severely injured. The one who could kill so many people in an instant was none other than the head of the Morgue family, Adolf. "You bunch of vile and lowly barbarians, I give you 3 final seconds to consider. Release my niece at once, or else don't blame me for being ruthless. My neck is tightly locked with a deadly rope, yet the other side crazily claims it's to save my life just because the recent battle alerted the Guardian boss here. But it's already too late. Suddenly, a huge spike fiercely burst from the ground, appearing right before our eyes. This is the S-level boss octopus giant spider that guards this area. Just moments ago, Adolf successfully raided the barbarians' temporary camp and ordered his men to definitely eliminate them all. Seeing two enemies riding giant wolves trying to escape, Adolf shouted loudly, "Today, we must not let any barbarian escape from here." At the same time, I secretly approached the tree where Camus was tied. Then I gestured to him to remain silent. When I was cutting the ropes that bound Camus, she actually excitedly asked if I was there to save her. In the end, my covert operation was still discovered, but Aye had always known that I would come. So from my body, which had traveled thousands of miles yet was not tired, and my actions to save my beloved at all costs, she expressed approval. Along with that, he also gave me a passing grade. Hearing this, I was utterly confused, not knowing at all what her implications really meant. However, Camus saw through his intentions, and the eyes of the two met in an instant. On the other hand, I pondered how to hide my strength and fight with Aye. Although she was capable of injuring her own father, Hugo, and Adolf, according to memories from a past life, I had never seen anyone named Aye born in the barbarian tribe. Don't tell me the scar on Hugo's nose was intentionally inflicted. Originally, I had guessed he was Night Fox, a genius archer I encountered in my past life, but Aye is still young, and various technologies have yet to mature. Could she possibly be a descendant of Night Fox? Meanwhile, a magic pipe hidden in the blind spot was aiming at Camus. Just as the poison needle was about to hit Camus, I reacted quickly and blocked the sneak attack with my hand. But actually, I had already been aware of the opponent's location. Seeing that things were getting increasingly out of hand, I told Camus that I would immediately take her to Adolf. Then I turned and retreated rapidly towards the distance. Meanwhile, Aye touched his head, feeling utterly vexed. Originally, he thought I would obediently go back with him. It seems that soft approaches aren't working, only hard ones will do now. Just at this moment, two barbarian archers blocking the way ahead launched an attack on us, but such a level of attack couldn't harm me in the slightest. I simply drew my sword and easily blocked the opponent's full force. Little did I know, just as I let my guard down, Aye, who was standing there, actually drew his bow. In order to take me back, he had to take Camus away directly within the remaining time. Suddenly, a terrifyingly powerful arrow shot forth. When I realized something was wrong, the distance of the arrow was already very close. Fortunately, Adolf arrived in time, using a wide range of freezing magic. He barely saved Camus from death, and when he found out his niece was suffering from a severe poison, he immediately used healing magic on Camus. But since it was a tricky paralytic poison, Adolf, not being a priest, had no countermeasures. So he decided to take Camus to the Nova family to see Vasily for treatment. But just at that moment, Camus actually pushed away his uncle's hands that were treating him. Then he jumped up and hugged me tightly. He also thanked me for saving his life again. Seeing this, Adolf was instantly dumbfounded. With tears, he said that he was indeed very serious about Camus. Hearing this, Camus immediately scolded, "Uncle, how old are you? How can you say such cheesy love words? When we get back, I will definitely tell my mom." Suddenly, a lasso appeared. He firmly locked my neck. I knew without thinking who it was, but the words Aye spoke next left me utterly confused. He told me there wasn't much time left. If I followed him now, I could save my life. As soon as he finished speaking, a terrifyingly loud noise suddenly erupted. The gray sky instantly turned purple. At this moment, Aye was sweating cold sweat in fright. Although he knew that there wasn't much time left, I really didn't expect it to come so quickly. At the same time, the parasite in my right hand began to creak, constantly sending me danger warnings. Suddenly, a huge spike burst from the ground. The tribes that knew what it was all said the monster had come, but while Camus was pondering where it was from, the spike actually split into 8 legs and planted itself on the road surface. Adolf realized the high danger level of this object and immediately stepped forward to protect Camus. Similarly, the moment I saw the 8 legs, I also prepared for defense. I really did not expect to encounter him here. If I remember correctly, the attacking beast is the S-level boss, the giant spider Aegis. To kill my own father, I actually chose to sacrifice my life in the battle with the beast. It turns out that the past me died at my father's hands. Now, returning to a new life with even greater power, I must find a way to avoid my father Hugo's surveillance. Fortunately, in the rescue operation for Camus, an S-level beast, the giant octopus spider, suddenly appeared. This monster is undoubtedly my best choice, only because in a past life I learned from an old man that a giant octopus spider of this level can destroy a city in 2.5 minutes. And I, with a body of steel obtained from the waters of the Styx, and the strongest demonic sword, Taudi, in my right hand, can contend with it. At this moment, as an elder, Adolf immediately stood in front of me and Camus. But as the giant spider emits a terrifying roar, Camus, frightened, was just about to scream. I immediately covered his mouth because the giant spider lives in places with very weak light, so his eyesight has basically deteriorated, replaced by extremely sensitive touch and hearing. However, just as we were pondering how to escape from here, the giant spider suddenly opened its gaping mouth and shot out green venom. The thick branches were contaminated and instantly corroded away. It goes without saying that the toxicity is extremely high. Seeing this, I dodged each one with my agile movements. Adolf protected Camus with a magic barrier, but Alan just hesitated for 2.5 seconds, and his long braid was instantly corroded by the venom touching it. At this moment, he was so angry that he was gnashing his teeth, furiously pounding the ground with his hands to vent. Such behavior was immediately met with Aye's reprimand. "You're really a dumbass," knowing full well that the giant octopus spider has very sensitive hearing, yet you deliberately made such a loud noise. As soon as the words were spoken, the giant spider turned its body, ready to attack towards Aye. So Aye immediately ordered his men to mount their steeds and flee into the depths of the forest. But it was at this detail that the giant spider shifted its attack target to Adolf and the others. Their escape route had few trees. It was completely open land. Seeing no way to escape the giant spider's pursuit, a morgue magician gathered flames in his hands. From years of hunting experience, he knew that this was the weakness of insect-type creatures. As he fiercely launched his attack, it hit the monster squarely and also caused a powerful explosion. Seeing this, the magician and his companions showed relief on their faces. That strike was simply awesome. However, they did not notice the gap in levels at all. Even though the giant spider's weakness is fire, in the face of attacks with extremely low lethality, it is impossible to cause fatal damage. In no time, both of them were pierced by the giant spider's claws. Even if they ended up shedding tears of frustration, they could not escape the fate of meeting their end. Helplessly, Adolf could only continue to look for ways to stop the claw-wielding giant spider. However, Camus' illness made things difficult for him. Suddenly, I had a flash of inspiration, a sudden screech of brakes, a turnaround, a halt in footsteps. Seeing this, Stafford immediately asked me what I intended to do. I responded solemnly, "If we keep fleeing like this without resistance, everyone will perish under the attack of the giant octopus spider. We need someone to step forward to temporarily hold off the monster's pursuit." And to dissuade Stafford from competing, I directly challenged him. "Do you think you have the strength to face an S-class monster? If not, just let me keep running. Moreover, right ahead is the territory of Baskerville. Absolutely cannot let him step half into there. Otherwise, the consequences would be too horrific to bear. So, the only one who might have a chance to complete this mission is me. And it must be me." I also leave the decision to run away or stay and resist together to Adolf. But as Camus is getting sicker, Adolf must personally escort her to receive treatment. In the end, he also made up his mind. That is, absolutely do not let down the escape time I created for the team. Seeing this, Camus cried his heart out. He shouted that I must come back safely to see him. Hearing this, I was somewhat speechless. Just made up a lie and it made everyone believe it was true. After all, even if I take him to the territory in front, even if assembling the temporary forces of Baskerville and Morgue, it's still impossible to defeat the octopus giant spider. But for me, this is undoubtedly the only chance to get rid of Hugo's surveillance. If I can pretend to die in this operation, I can seize the time to study and break through the 10th sword technique. When I am sufficiently skilled, I will no longer be manipulated by Hugo, or I can further perfect my skills to hide my true strength. Then I will return to the Baskerville family. At this moment, the gluttonous beast residing in my right hand is already starving. At the same time, the shadow of the giant octopus spider also appears above my head. At this moment, I will use all my strength without reservation. Among them is the steel body bestowed by the waters of the river Styx, Baskerville's fifth sword technique, and the strongest and most important, the gluttonous sword of the Demon King. Immediately, I turned into a series of after-images, directly swooping over the top of the giant eight-legged spider. Soon, it too sensed a terrifying demonic force, but I absolutely will not give it a chance to exploit. As my gluttonous sword burst forth with fearsome magical power, I instantaneously plunged towards the top of the giant spider's head in order to fulfill the revenge plan from my previous life. I absolutely cannot let this opportunity pass. As I saw the giant octopus's talons begin to emit cracking sounds, I surprisingly surpassed the limits and broke through his ultimate defense. At this moment, countless blood spurted out from its huge mouth, and my strong strike also formed a huge red shadow filling the entire forest. However, seeing this scene, Camus was also deeply struck in his heart, as well as that powerless cry for help that could not assist me. I was labeled a genius at the age of 6. 18 years old, I joined an assassination organization. By 25, my sword skills had reached their peak. At 36, I eliminated the Demon Clan and led humanity to victory. But the reward for my triumphant return was execution on the guillotine, personally delivered by my father. Now, even though I have been reborn and embarked on a path of revenge, this hateful memory continuously replays like a stream of horses and carriages in my mind. When I next opened my eyes, I found myself in an unfamiliar place. I don't know how many days I've been unconscious. Did I survive that battle? Just at this moment, I suddenly remembered the part where I fought the giant octopus spider. If in those 2.5 seconds it hadn't been frightened by the blinding light from the explosion, I really would have died because I couldn't defeat it. I underestimated the power of the giant octopus spider. Its attacks are simply nightmarish for me now. At this moment, whether it's the muscles, bones, there's no place in the veins that doesn't feel pain. However, why is this rope tied around my neck? I still have no idea. Could it be that this rope saved my life? But never mind. If things continue to develop as they are now, I can escape from Hugo's sight as originally planned. Naturally, I won't have to worry about my death certificate. Camus and the others will all become crucial court evidence. When I walked out of the simple tent, I then realized that I had arrived at a barbarian tribe's encampment. It seems I was picked up by some enemy force and brought back. Meanwhile, behind me, a female from the barbarian tribe quickly approached, leading 4 slaves prepared to carry out executions. I recognized that the 4 slaves were from the third-rate Baskerville clan. But as for why I was treated differently, I still cannot fathom. Suddenly, someone behind me called out. The person was Alan, who had wanted to attack Camus again. Seeing that I was awake, he asked, "What does it feel like to watch your people march towards death? I bet you feel totally desperate and in pain. After all, with your crippled body, you are powerless to fight back. But you should still be grateful that your master saved you. Otherwise, you would have ended like those 4 slaves just now." However, what he said next completely angered me. "You, the commander's pet dog." At this moment, I am reminded again of the fate dominated by Hugo in my previous life. No matter the cost in this life, I will not make the same mistakes again. And the murderous aura emitted from my anger also makes Alan feel as if the Grim Reaper has descended. But he quickly realizes that I am now powerless. Then he swings his fist and strikes a heavy blow to my face. Immediately after, he scolds me to hurry along the rope to find my own master. She's already at her wit's end. After speaking, Alan angrily left the scene. A gentleman's revenge is not too late even after 10 years. When my body is recovered, I will definitely return double the punch that scoundrel threw at me. Following that, I listened to Alan's words and successfully found the end of the rope. To my surprise, the so-called master turned out to be the barbarian tribe's genius girl, Aiye. Seeing her still bathing in the river, I didn't know what to say. Just at that moment, Aiye suddenly shouted at me to get down and yanked the rope, forcing me to the ground. Then what appeared was an arrow striking the tree trunk in front of me. Listening to Aye scolding those barbaric children, I realized I had been used as a target by them. It seems staying here really means suffering for a while. After the scolding was over, Aye then thanked me for saving his life earlier, and he also mentioned that he had saved me twice, because among the barbarian tribes, it is clearly stipulated, favors must be returned twofold, but if it is hatred, then it is deemed to be tenfold. Hearing this, I asked puzzledly, "So, this rope is the proof that you saved me, right?" "Correct. Without it, you would have been swallowed whole by the giant octopus spider," Aye confirmed. Then I asked again, "I am the enemy of the barbarian tribe. Why would I be treated differently and not executed?" Aye said with a smile, "Of course, it's because your status in Baskerville seems very high. So, I want to try and see how much money I can get for you. It seems I've encountered a trafficker. If the barbarians really negotiate with Baskerville to ransom me, then my pretending to be dead and all the plans that follow will be ruined." Just at that moment, Aye suddenly showed a sinister smile. "Unfortunately, I no longer want money now. I just want you to be my slave. So now I will teach you the first step of the slave training manual. That is, you must call me master from now on." Having said that, he cut the rope connecting us with a sword. However, Aye thinks that before taming me into a slave, he must take me to meet someone. This person is the chief in charge here. This is a tribe where women are superior to men. Women have become the main force supporting the race. They go out every day to look for prey with strong genes and capture them as slaves for breeding purposes. In contrast, males are born as beggars of the race. They have to go out daily to beg women for food. Even sleeping is only possible on hammocks. Aye tells me that all this is very common in barbarian tribes. After all, which strong woman would refuse a partner with strong genes? However, there are always exceptions. Over the centuries, only a very few men have distinguished themselves. The chieftain's father is one of them. Chatting along, we soon arrived at the tent at the center. But what I didn't expect was the moment Aye entered the door, she actually addressed the tribal chief as Mother. Seeing her daughter bring a slave, and a male one at that, he joked, "It seems you have finally brought the strong-gened boy you've been dreaming of day and night." Upon hearing this, Aye immediately shouted in protest, "I did not do such a thing. Mother, please stop joking. I brought him to see you because there is another important matter. It seems everything is about to become much more interesting. That is to say, the woman standing in front of me right now is indeed the night fox I knew in my past life. She is also the one who left a scar on my father Hugo's nose, and the female warrior who caused Morgadolf to lose his composure completely. Thus, to test the current strength of the barbarian tribe leader, I compare him with my past life's condition. Facing him directly, the odds of winning are 0. Attacking from behind also has a 0 chance of winning. If I chose to run away instead, although there's a 20% chance, this probability is not of winning. It is the survival rate of escaping from his sight. At this moment, the barbarian tribe chief scrutinizes me carefully. He doesn't seem to welcome my arrival. Then, in the next second, he looks at me with a surprised expression. "Your face seems familiar to me," he remarks. But he didn't say much either. After all, in her perception, most emperors look like this. Seeing that my identity was not exposed, I was finally able to breathe a sigh of relief. I almost thought that with her intuition of 72.5 years, she could determine that I am a close blood relative of Baskerville. Then the chieftain of the barbarians questioned my body wrapped in bandages. My precious daughter brought me a slave. It seems no different from a tumor in the group. On hearing this, Aye smiled and explained, "Madam Mother, don't be fooled by his appearance right now. He is the man who can fight on par with a giant octopus spider. But right now he needs to receive good treatment. So from now on, I want him to be my personal slave. Every day he will go out hunting with me." Naturally, a mother understands her daughter's little schemes the best. She advised Aye that 2.5 times a night is enough. The most important thing is that the slave's genes must be strong. But still, be cautious about the other person's identity and background, lest you end up hurting yourself. After meeting the chieftain of the barbarians, Aye decided to take me on a major undertaking. Along the way, I couldn't help asking him again about what he had previously said. "What exactly do you want me to stay here for? The clan rules of Baskerville are very strict. Even if you want to use me for ransom, they really wouldn't easily agree. Aye suddenly showed a flush on his face, indicating that he was just joking at that time. Actually, what I really want is to be able to stay by his side. But this by his side, he told me not to think too crooked like his mother. The conversation ends here. Then follows the first task assigned to me by Aye, the slave. Building a tent for myself to live in. From now on, that will be my dwelling in the barbarian tribe. Having said that, Aye couldn't help but chuckle to himself, thinking silently, that's right. For his such arrogant nature, adding to that, he's still an element of the human empire. Building a house is surely a castle in the sky for him. He will definitely shamelessly beg me for guidance when the time comes. I will use these methods more to make him realize the difference between master and slave. As 2.5 minutes go by, Aye, who went out and came back, appeared puzzled, because during that time, I had already set up a simple tent, and it even looked somewhat reliable. Aye's original plan seems to be completely botched. Sadly, I had gone through all this trouble to gather a whole bunch of useful equipment. Looking at the tent setup, I can't help but recall the memories of fighting abroad in my previous life. It was during the era of destruction, when most Baskerville knights only knew how to wield their swords to kill the enemy, which led to the creation of a fatal factor that prevented long-term survival outdoors. To solve such issues, Baskerville began to take it seriously. Before every child reached the age of adulthood, they all have to undergo tests in extreme environments. So setting up a tent is a small matter for me. At this moment, Aye seriously examined all my data. Whether it's the sewer or the stability of the tent, both are perfect. So he asked me how I managed to do it. And because Aye once saved my life, I told him everything without reservation. First, what we need to do is find lime and gravel to mix and make bricks. Then use animal fat to fire and strengthen the hardness. I also told him that during my conversation with the chieftain, I noticed the tents of the barbarian tribes all have major issues. If it pours heavily, they will definitely become unstable. Thus, after days and nights of brickmaking, Aye and I decided to first use them to repair the chieftain's tent of the barbarian tribe. With my bricklaying skills practiced over 2.5 years, the tent's instability in harsh weather conditions was finally resolved. Seeing this, the chieftain of the barbarians had a look of disbelief. It seems that there is still something the imperial humans can teach them. Now, even in the worst weather conditions, the tribe no longer worries about leaky roofs and collapsing houses. Thus, my next task was to work with Aye to solve the tribe's tent issues. A few days later, I officially began a slave's miserable life. Every day I had to do laundry, cooking, and other miscellaneous tasks. Aye finally couldn't bear it anymore. She asked me if I really wanted to keep going like this. Have I never thought about becoming an official member of the barbarians? I casually responded that doing odd jobs wasn't such a bad thing. Indeed, it is so. Rather than the intrigue of the Baskerville, it is preferable to listen to my answer. Aye knows that I must have undergone professional training. However, on the way back, Aye still insisted on persuading me to join their barbaric tribe. He would also teach me how to survive and adapt to this environment. But I am not interested in these at all. Not until he mentioned that I could finally remove the rope from my neck did I turn back to ask if it was true. Then I asked what I needed to do, and going hunting was the answer Aye gave me. Because during this period, the barbarian tribe had not captured any large prey for a long time, resulting in the tribe's children not getting enough nutritional supplements. In other words, as long as you can change the current situation, naturally integrating into the barbarian tribe would not be difficult. Moreover, with your skills, being a sparring partner here would definitely be top-notch. So you believe that I am definitely right. In the future, you will definitely appreciate me as the commander of the hunting department. Left with no choice, I could only agree first. After all, who can stand wearing a collar around their neck every day, just like a dog? Just as we were preparing to pack up our gear to go hunting, suddenly, a figure appeared behind us, eavesdropping. It was Alan, the one who wants me dead. Disgusting bastard. I will definitely make you pay the price you deserve. It's absolutely impossible to get by here. This is a barbaric tribe where women are revered and men are despised. The women here have become the main force supporting the race. Every day, They go out to hunt for prey with strong genes and capture them to be slaves for breeding purposes. In contrast, males are seen as the lowest caste from birth. Not only do they have to beg for food every day, but they also have to sleep in the streets. So Alan, to change this situation, decided to make everyone aware during this hunting trip. As a man, he was also able to hunt down large prey, and with Alan's efforts, he successfully brought back a 3-meter-tall porcupine with back spikes to the tribe. The people of the tribe praised him continuously upon seeing it. Moreover, Alan acted alone. This made everyone in the tribe unanimously believe that he is undoubtedly the best candidate for the next hunting team leader. Alan was extremely excited to hear this. Everything he did was in order to replace Aye. At this moment, he also gradually lost himself in the praises of the tribe members, still mocking Aye for taking a disabled slave, afraid that when he returns, he won't even catch a decent rabbit. But in reality, it's not as Alan says. Aye had already set his hunting target on the horned bear. In order to let me achieve a great feat and join their barbaric clan genealogy, Aye spent a total of 2.5 days thoroughly studying the habits and the deadly weaknesses of the horned bear. At this moment, we followed the traces of the horned bear to a place of ice and snow. For a male horned bear, just drained of vigor by mating, this place is definitely the best hiding spot. Just when we thought everything would go according to the original plan, the unexpected quietly struck. Suddenly, a pair of crimson eyes appeared beside Aye. Upon realizing that his whereabouts were exposed, the male horn bear decided to take the initiative to strike. He swung his huge claws and charged fiercely, intending to put his enemy to death. Although Aye, sensing the danger, reacted in time, his instinctive fear left him bewildered and frozen in place. I managed to hug Aye's waist in time and forcefully leaned backward to avoid a tragic disablement. However, the loss of balance was severe, causing us to fall heavily to the ground. Brooke, seeing his owner bullied, also opened his wide mouth to launch an attack on the corner bear. Even though Brooke successfully bit the bear's arm, in the face of the absolute difference in levels, his biting attack was utterly ineffective. Seeing this, I then warned Aye to avoid confronting the bear head-on as much as possible. At that time, we should flank it from both sides, together coordinating an attack on the bear's weakest parts. No sooner had I finished speaking, Aye then ordered me to hide behind in my place. She would ensure my safety. However, this was actually Aye wanting to demonstrate the authority of a leader. The thought of getting punched for disobeying the order made me find a large rock that was enough to cover my figure. But I still felt puzzled and confused. By reason, slaves should be on the front lines instead of hiding away. I really can't understand the bizarre rules of the barbaric tribes. Meanwhile, Aye rides Brooke, leaping back and forth through rugged mountain terrains. They plan to launch an attack from the air, rendering the bulky horned bear completely defenseless. After being hit by several arrows, the horned bear also scrambles to hide behind rocks to avoid the shooting, but it completely underestimated the opponent's strength. In the face of Aye's magic-infused archery skills, obstacles play no role in dodging and are essentially useless. Even if it is a city wall, when he exerts his full strength, it will also be shot through and collapse on the spot. However, what surprised me this time, the arrows shot by Aye did not penetrate the rock. Instead, they used the impact with the rock to generate a blast of air, attacking the horned bear hiding behind it. It even precisely hit its most vulnerable belly. Such superb archery skills are truly admirable, turning shooting into an art form, and the flawless skill to grasp the prey's weakness. Only the descendants of the night fox can achieve this. If looking solely at talent, in the future, Aye's strength will likely surpass that of the future Magic Queen Camus. At this moment, after taking a fatal blow, blood constantly flowed from the bear's mouth. It probably knew its life was nearing its end, so it decided not to keep running away, but turned around and charged fiercely towards the enemy that attacked it. Seeing this, Aye did not panic at all, still continuously pulling the bow to shoot arrows at the prey's head. Seeing that the horned bear was in imminent danger, Aye once again infused magic into the arrow, ready to send off the horned bear in front of him with a full-powered finishing move. As the magic-infused arrow was shot, the surrounding air was affected by the shockwave, even causing a slight vibration. This move is said to be able to pierce through 2.5 cities, which is not an exaggeration. originally thought that the horned bear would completely fall after a barbaric charge, but unexpectedly in a critical moment, its eyes suddenly emitted a fierce light. Using his clever wit, he skillfully dodged the attack. Although his right foot did not escape unscathed, he successfully knocked away the enemy that posed a threat to him, and the attacked Aye also rolled out more than 100 meters away. At this moment, he finally understood why the female horned bear would choose this male horned bear, because among the entire horned bear group, it was more than 10 times smarter than the other males. However, Aye also neglected the words his mother had warned him before. When a fierce beast is on the brink of death, they will burst forth with unprecedented wildness and aggression until they kill the enemy that threatens their lives. Aye watched as the horned bear appeared in front of him. The instinct of fear once again imprisoned him in place. He knew well that his life was about to be forfeited here. But just as the horned bear opened its huge mouth, I could no longer stand by and watch. You should have already shown your majesty. Now it's my turn to step in. My eyes emitted a fierce light. Following this, I summoned the Tao-Ti sword that resides in my right hand, striking directly at the coming horned bear's mouth. In an instant, a powerful flame burst forth suddenly. The horned bear also completely succumbed to the northwest after being hit. However, just as I was about to mock Aye for his overestimation, I, who forcefully used demonic power while relying on my injured body, suddenly had a cardiac arrest and collapsed on the ground. I merely consumed the long viscera of the ox bear. The next day, all the women lined up in front of the elders' council tent, everyone dressed up, preparing for me to marry them as my wives. But I, kept in the dark, still did not realize the seriousness of the matter, because the greatest hero of this hunting operation, from now on, must marry any woman from the tribe in a formal ceremony. At this moment, the people in line showed panic on their faces because Aye had just returned from hunting. She was seen angrily scolding these ignorant fools. Damn it. I painstakingly distributed food to you all yesterday, and yet today, you blatantly try to take what's mine. After hearing Aye's words, the crowd also started to appear unconvinced. Clearly, the Council of Elders hasn't made a decision yet. How can you say that the slave belongs only to you? Aye felt that if you think the men of the Empire are good, then go out and lasso them with your own strength. But those people still think that I have nothing to do with the Empire. Rather, they believe that the heavens have bestowed upon them the most robust of humans. Seeing that they are still not giving up, Aye instantly became furious and prepared to go on a killing spree. If you think the Empire has no decent men, then I might as well send you to hell to find them. With those harsh words, the unmarried women of the tribe were immediately scared off and fled. At this time, Aye was extremely distressed, indicating that before my body has recovered, those guys had already started to frantically scramble. Had I known it would be like this, I should not have eaten the life root of the ox and bear publicly yesterday. Then he looked around searching for his slaves. Aye was completely unaware that I was standing right behind him, and after hearing everything he said, I was completely speechless. That is to say, the thing I ate yesterday was that disgusting stuff. No wonder Aye's face was not only red like a monkey's butt, he also kept repeating that you replenish what you eat. Even several women from the tribe deliberately came over to shout loudly, "Captain Aye, I advise you not to have improper thoughts about the slaves." Even though Aye strongly denied it, it seems they all understand what this long cow and bear viscera really is. Having no choice, I can only accept the fact of being fooled. But what makes me curious is the barbaric tribe's bizarre traditions are not just a few. First, women are revered over men. Then, before going out hunting, everyone must smear charcoal powder on their face and wear a dog collar around their neck. Now, as long as the meat is divided a little less, I can still increase my reputation among the barbarian tribes. Although Aye has told me if I want to successfully join the barbarian tribe as an imperial, then higher reputation is naturally one of the most important factors. Even hunting ox bears has already earned me quite a reputation. But to be cautious of unexpected events, reducing meat consumption is absolutely necessary. Fortunately, after eating the strong ox bear meat, my physical injuries have also healed a lot. I estimate that in another 2.5 days I will be able to move freely. Moreover, I have even better gains here. That is, after defeating the bull and bear, I successfully plundered his A-grade skill, Thousand Autumn. As long as I hold my breath, I can temporarily increase my weight to a frightening 600 kilograms. For someone like me who can stay buoyant in the Stygian waters for 30 minutes. This skill, to me, is practically like having a cheat code. When night falls, I arrived in front of a huge, broken tree. I could see traces around the tree where the poison had just corroded. It seems that indeed Aye wasn't wrong. The giant 8-legged spider really would be summoned to come and eat. At that time, she took the most tender parts of the prey, captured by all the tribespeople. Everything was placed on this broken tree. At first, I was very confused, so I asked if this is really how the barbarians store their food. Upon hearing this, Aye focused intently on the distant sky. He told me that these foods were sacrifices to the clawed giant spider. If they did not do this, that barbarian tribe will not be allowed to live in this land of the Crimson Earth. It was then that I realized when encountering the giant claw pearl, Aye and the others clearly showed even more fear. It seems that my reckless actions almost destroyed the entire barbarian tribe. The time came to the next morning. Aye hurriedly found me because in 2.5 minutes, a ceremony to honor achievements will be held. At that time, I will become the most honored hunter of the tribe. And I was able to make demands to the tribal chief and have them satisfied. But about what I should do next, Aye has already planned it all out for me. Soon, we arrived at the tribe's meeting hall. To hold this event, festive red cloths were hung, and under the chief's presiding, and also in the observation of all the elders and tribe members, I put on the most honorable hunter's clothes in the tribe. But what surprised me the most was the usually cold and ruthless night fox, Aquila. To my surprise, it made me feel a gentleness I had never experienced before. At this moment, Aquila said with a smile, "Considering your hunting reward from yesterday, I will exempt you from your status as a lowly slave in our clan. Starting from now, you will officially become a member of our big family." As soon as the words were spoken, the elder shaman Ashuman coughed, seeming to disapprove of the chief's decision to pardon the enemies of the empire. And before this ceremony took place, Aye had actually already told me Ashuman is Alan's grandfather. Naturally, the biggest dissatisfaction comes from him. At the same time, Aquila slowly stood up. Then he asked me what kind of wish I wanted to fulfill, whether I wanted to marry and have children with any woman from the tribe. He could arrange it all for me, or if I wanted to have one or more slaves. Hearing this, I pretended to close my eyes and ponder the issue. This segment is actually also a step in Aye's plan. After 2.5 minutes, I showed a determined expression. If the chieftain is willing, I would like to submerge my body in the spring of the brave. But as soon as I finished speaking, whether it's the tribe's people or the council of elders, everyone was shocked on the spot for a full 2.5 years. As for Aquila, he had a serious face. Choosing the spring of the brave. Do you know what that means? I merely ate the long viscera of a horned bear. The next day, all the women congregated in front of the elder's tent, lining up in a queue. Each woman dressed up, ready for me to choose from at will. But I, unfamiliar with the custom, had yet to grasp the seriousness of the situation. Because the most credited hero of this hunting expedition, besides being able to make a wish with the barbarian chieftain, also gets to choose a woman from the tribe to marry. They also assume that most men are lecherous by nature, convinced that I would definitely choose to have children with them. Little did they know my tolerance for women had been honed to perfection in my previous life. So I decisively asked the clan leader for permission. That is to allow me to enter the tribe's Spring of Heroes. Upon hearing this, Aquila showed a sharp expression. He questioned whether I knew what the Spring of Heroes meant. Just as I was about to answer, I was interrupted and scolded angrily by the shaman elder Ashuman sitting next to me. "Nonsense! You, an outsider, how dare you be so presumptuous? You should know that those who can enter the Spring of Heroes must at least have proud battle achievements to be eligible in the tribe." After listening to Ashuman's words, Alan, sitting diagonally across, echoed, "Yes, yes. To enter the Heroes' Spring, one must prove their strength. Not just anyone can simply say they want to enter." But Aye seemed unhappy because in this hunting operation, not only did I catch a battle-capable horned bear, but it also allowed the entire tribe to feast heartily for 2.5 months. Following that, Aquila asked again about the Hero's Spring. "What exactly do you know about it?" And I too firmly replied, "Its greatest function is healing. Just soak in it for 2.5 minutes. Whether it's internal or external injuries, they can be instantly healed. However, it takes a very long time for the spring water to gather, so its value for use is definitely very high. If you want to go in, you must be one of the strongest among the barbarian tribes. After carefully listening to my explanation, Aquila couldn't help but admire me a bit more. She then fell into deep thought. Seeing this, the elders of other clans also expressed their opinions. Some believed that the despicable foreigners should not use the Spring of Braves, while others thought that my talents were extraordinary and that I could potentially be trained into a very powerful warrior in the future. Seeing this, Ashaman took the opportunity to mock. When did our precious Spring of Braves become a small spring capable of accommodating countless people? Looking at Aquila, he just feels it's a pity he is able to satisfy this request. But the opposition from many people and the strong blockade by the shaman elders make it impossible for him to respond at this time. At this moment, suddenly the sound of the announcement bell came from outside. So, with a puzzled face, I asked, could it be that the watchtower has spotted invading enemies? Upon hearing this, Aye explained, this time, it's not an enemy but a guest who has come. It seems that the visitor this time has significant meaning for the barbarian tribes. Aquila quickly instructs people here to go out and welcome him. As for the Spring of Heroes, she told me to discuss it thoroughly after the work is done. This is naturally a good sign for me. But Ashuman, seeing that none of his excuses could convince the chieftain, his eyes immediately filled with an air of hatred. By the time Aye and I arrived following the sounds, many people from the tribe had already gathered here. How could I foresee the scene that emerged before my eyes? It actually shocked me for a whole 2.5 years. I saw countless merchants arriving at the barbarian tribes with their goods. Then Aye told me, these people were all here to exchange goods. In return, they could acquire rare products only available from the Empire. I felt extremely puzzled by this because the flags on the arriving carriages belonged to one of the 7 major families, the capitalists. But to get here, they had to pass through the territories guarded by Morg and Baskerville. Naturally, merchants practicing such behaviors would not be allowed, so they can only come in another way, that is by smuggling. As merchants display a variety of imperial goods, people of the ethnic groups offer various leathers and sweaters in exchange. However, the best-selling items are the glass beads known as dreamy sleepiness. However, I realized at a glance that these merchants were engaging in fraud. They wanted to exploit the information gap of the barbarian tribes, exchanging items of extremely low value for those of very high value. Just at that moment, Aye suddenly scolded the traders. The reason was, she only got a corn cob for a diamond, but I thought she realized the unfairness of the trade. However, what she said next left me speechless. 1 cob is not enough. At least 2 cobs would do. Seeing Aye's actions, other people from the barbarian tribes also started to follow. Eventually, they too received double the exchange items. Seeing this, I immediately turned around and left, fearing that the other party would recognize my identity. At the same time, a little girl approached the merchant, saying she wanted to exchange for a glass bead. But when the merchant saw what the little girl brought for the exchange, a look of disgust appeared on his face immediately. Then he slapped away the insect in her hand and turned to leave, leaving the little girl kneeling alone on the spot to observe the condition of the insect. Originally, this was a matter within the barbarian tribe. I really didn't want to meddle and cause trouble until that merchant uttered those words. He wanted to take that little girl and sell her as a slave. I then decided to expose this scam that has been going on for who knows how long. First, I told him not to hurry to leave this place. Then I firmly told him, this is an unfair trade. Aye, by my side, seemed to notice something unusual. She didn't understand why I suddenly wanted to color my body. Seeing there were barbarians who understood the language of the Empire, the merchant also pretended to be a good person and greeted me. But I still told him not to change the subject because this is an unfair trade involving fraud. Unexpectedly, the other party vowed to make me stop making a fuss. He thought he had done his utmost duty, and this trade was permitted by the forest god on behalf of the shaman elders. So I took the opportunity, pointing at the vegetables before us. The corn you brought might be worth 100 gold coins at most, but the diamonds you traded for are at least 2 million gold coins each. This is the so-called utmost kindness and justice. After listening to what I said, the merchant broke out in a cold sweat from fright. As for what comes next, I will expose their desecration of the sacred word. In my hand, I hold a glass bead called Dreamy Drowsiness. This thing is the main source of income for the Empire's underground organizations. Once inhaled, it will cause hallucinations, an illegal drug. Even excessive use can turn a strong and healthy person into a walking corpse, a complete wreck. Having said that, I fiercely crushed it into fragments. Seeing that among the barbarians there were some who understood the situation, the merchant immediately signaled with his eyes to run away quickly. And because Aye knew some Imperial language, she seemed to hear that glass beads could harm health, so she expressed her doubts. I gave a definitive answer. In a flash, he felt extremely angry and immediately took out a weapon, fired an arrow at the merchant who was still pretending. Now everyone who was there knew the harm of glass beads and decided to confront the merchants for an explanation. Seeing the situation turning sour, they dropped the goods they brought and fled the place on horseback. Because of this, I asked Aye why not pursue them. But the experienced Aye told me that the other party are merchants. Once they incur losses, they won't easily let it go. Next, they will surely find help and come back for revenge. Meanwhile, the merchants arrived at a camp. This place is gathered with a bunch of ruthless thugs armed with weapons. It seems tonight is destined to have a fierce battle. When night falls, Aye's White Eagle comes to report the situation. He decides to take the initiative to strike, to slaughter all those cunning merchants completely. This hot spring can only condense a drop every 3 years. It is revered by the barbarian tribe as the spring of the brave. Only those respected by the entire tribe as strong are worthy to possess it. Because just by soaking in the spring water, no matter what terminal cancer, it can be cured instantly. A six-pack and mermaid line are just a matter of soaking for 2.5 days. If one could absorb all the magic inside, one could even have a body impervious to knives and guns. So when I, a foreigner, expressed my desire to soak in it, many in the tribe strongly opposed it. But the actions I took next would make the entire tribe see me as the most powerful hero. At this moment, Aye and I stand on the highest cliff of the Red Land. Seeing that the group of merchants had already found help, Aye then decided to take the initiative and launch an annihilation operation. At the same time, the merchants had also agreed on a strategy, planning to secretly sneak into the least guarded area of the barbarian tribe and set a fire for a surprise attack. But on the way, the leader of the mercenaries, a one-eyed cyclops, started mocking his employer. He had long thought the barbarians despicable and shameless. Cooperating with those savages was simply unrealistic. It would be better to exterminate them or sell them as slaves for money. Although the merchant endured the other party's verbal insults, he still, with good intentions, reminds the mercenaries. In his perception, the barbarians are one of the strongest tribes. Just relying on their few dozen people to win is not an easy task. However, after hearing this, the Cyclops still shows disdain. Since he was born, there has not been a task he couldn't complete. He even claims that in the entire mercenary business world, he is an undefeated Nightwalker. Thus, the Cyclops forcefully sets up the commission for this mission. He will take 50% of the total income from this transaction. But things have come to this point, the merchant no longer cares about making a lot of money. He just hopes that, as the mercenary said, it would be enough to wipe out the entire barbarian tribe. Just at this moment, two people had a little dispute over lighting a cigarette. Originally, one of the mercenaries was just an intern who had joined. He didn't know that continuous firing on the battlefield is a big taboo. But he, who wouldn't listen to advice, still directly grabbed the matches and lit a cigarette. He thought it was just superstition, as the rumors suggested. As a result, before he could show off for even 2.5 minutes, his forehead was pierced directly by an arrow, which also led to the deaths of his companions. Seeing this, the merchant immediately shouted to the rear to be on guard. It was most likely a preemptive strike by the barbarian tribe, and the appearance of Aye not far away also confirmed the merchant's suspicion was correct. But by then it was already too late. Tonight, Aye will definitely not let those who dare to harm their tribe escape this forest. As for me, standing by the side, I was shocked by the barbarian's strength. I had never imagined every archer of the barbarian tribe can actually rely on a tiny spot of light in the distance to shoot at the exact part they aim to hit. Meanwhile, a group of people carrying barrels appeared behind me. This was exactly the crucial step I needed to take to perform heroically and earn the admiration of the entire tribe. Subsequently, I ordered them to tie the barrels with ropes and then shoot arrows towards the enemy's location. As the barrels were secured one by one between the tree trunks, a net from heaven and earth was formed right above the enemy. Seeing this, the mercenaries were instantly stunned on the spot. They had no idea what trick the barbarian tribe was playing. Then in the next second, the barrels above exploded suddenly when hit by flaming arrows, and the explosion caused a chain reaction, instantly plunging that group of mercenaries and merchants into a sea of flames. Some were even directly swallowed by the flames. Then I took the opportunity to infiltrate the enemy camp and found the merchant previously wounded by Aye's arrow, only to see my eyes emitting a fierce light at this moment. From my own standpoint, I absolutely will not let any outlaw go unpunished. At this time, the merchant realized his life was in danger, and despite the fear in his heart, he continued to shout wildly. He even took out a so-called Baskerville governor's survey permit. "If you dare kill me, you definitely won't escape the punishment of the imperial law," he threatened. Hearing this, I couldn't keep pretending anymore. I remembered I've never issued a permit to anyone, and at this moment, the merchant finally remembered the person in front of him was indeed the ruler he had mentioned. Before he could kneel down and beg for mercy, both his forehead and heart were pierced by my arrows. Those who dare to forge Baskerville's legal documents must be killed without rescue. Suddenly, Aye, riding on Brooke, found me. There's no time to lose. They must flee quickly. Otherwise, they will definitely both suffer losses later, he urgently exclaimed. Meanwhile, the mercenaries on defense also realized something was wrong. The attack that should have been a rain of arrows was unexpectedly decreasing. Some thought it was because the barbarian tribe wasn't good at close combat. Perhaps they ran away. Hearing this, their confidence greatly increased, and they wanted to immediately blow the horn for a counterattack towards the barbarian tribe's main camp. Little did they know that at this moment behind them, an octopus-like giant spider had been summoned by the explosion earlier. In just a moment as it landed, I instantly wiped out that entire group of people. Seeing this, Aye couldn't help but praise me. He didn't expect me to think of borrowing the power of the giant octopus spider, firmly believing that after completing this mission, I will definitely become the strongest and most intelligent warrior of the barbarian tribe. But when I saw the giant octopus spider again, I fell into deep thought, wondering what kind of power would be enough to defeat it. The scene shifts. Aquila held another ceremony to honor my achievements. He also agreed to let me use the Spring of the Brave. No one else present had any objections. Only the shaman Ashuman remained. At this moment, he was so angry that his lips turned purple. But the minority must obey the majority. He could no longer interfere. Aquila then ordered Aye to take me to the location of the Spring of Heroes to heal my injuries, and before we left, Aye couldn't help but mock Ashuman. It turns out he had once uttered a curse, solemnly telling everyone in the tribe that if they cannot buy the glass beads known as dreamy drowsiness from the merchant, then they will all be subject to the death curse of the forest god. Naturally, some believed, while others did not. But from what we can see now, the influence of Ashuman in the future probably won't be credible anymore. Hearing this, I couldn't help but glance. It seems that the so-called shaman is just a junkie. This barbaric tribe's trade with the merchant is just a capitalist scam. As night falls, I finally soaked my battered body into the legendary Hero's Spring. Even though it was a long distance away, luckily, its effects were just as Aye had described. However, the Hero's Spring is essentially what is known as the waters of the underworld. It just doesn't have the age restrictions like Baskerville. What I extremely dislike is, Aye actually soaked in there with me, so I questioned her. Don't you know that if two people soak together, the effects are halved? Hearing this, Aye angrily told me not to be so petty. Since I have formally joined this big family of the barbarian tribe, I should dedicate myself selflessly. And Aye thinks I should really thank the person who discovered this hot spring. Although looking at him now, he has already aged. But you should know, he was once the strongest warrior in the tribe who could match the giant octopus spider evenly. Hearing this, I teased, but if this story is true, I will certainly respect that strongest warrior. Upon hearing this, Aye instantly became angry. Believe it or not, I do believe. But just after soaking for 2.5 hours, Aye suddenly turned red in the face and ears. He suddenly remembered what his mother had said. If his slave could heal from the hero's spring, then he would also make a fine husband later on. Yes, indeed, you must belong only to me. Do you want me to be with Aye or with Camus? Here it comes. Here it comes. Aye is finally about to express her love. She neither wants me to live as a slave among the barbarians, nor does she want me to return to the Baskerville Empire. Just as she was about to say those 4 words,